Hello, I'm Jim Patrick from the Yuma Main Library. President Trump recently appeared in Yuma for the third time, but did you know that 8 of his predecessors also visited our city? 2 of the presidents, Benjamin Harrison and William Howard Taft, slept through their Yuma stops. 2 others, Calvin Coolidge and George H.W. Bush, came as ex-presidents, and John F. Kennedy came as a U.S. Senator campaigning for president. Benjamin Harrison was the first U.S. president to visit Yuma. His month-long railroad trip to the West Coast took him through Yuma on April 22, 1891. Unfortunately, President Harrison's party arrived in Yuma in the middle of the night, and plans to greet him with a public demonstration and a grandstand review had to be canceled. But while the train was at the Yuma depot, a group of Yuma ladies was allowed to decorate the dining car with flowers and fruit from Yuma, a belated greeting from Yuma to the president when he woke for breakfast. The local newspaper described President Taft's early morning Yuma stop. The party on the train, including the president, were all asleep, and only 1 or 2 enthusiastic Republicans were at the train to see the coaches, which was all there was to see. Even in the years before Arizona achieved statehood in 1912, Yuma's Arizona Sentinel newspaper frequently included campaign ads for various Republican presidential candidates, including James Garfield, James Blaine, and Theodore Roosevelt. The day before he dedicated the Coolidge Dam on the Gila River, former President Calvin Coolidge made a stop in Yuma with his wife Grace. The Arizona Republic noted that practically the entire town of Yuma was out to greet the former chief executive of the United States. The Yuma newspaper was charmed by Mrs. Coolidge's friendly demeanor and by the couple's interest in Yuma's acclaimed Indian band. President Herbert Hoover and Mrs. Hoover were given a warm Yuma welcome a mere 5 days after Hoover had been defeated in the 1932 presidential election by Franklin Roosevelt. The Hoovers were heading back to Washington, D.C. from their home in Palo Alto, California. In his memoirs, Herbert Hoover mentions telegraphing President-elect Franklin Roosevelt from Yuma, Arizona, regarding European debtor nations. The lame duck president never got a response from FDR. 6 weeks before the 1948 election, President Harry Truman campaigned in Yuma as part of a whistle-stop railroad swing. Although his re-election was very much in doubt, the president attracted a huge crowd of supporters on a Friday night in Yuma, and he went on to defeat Thomas Dewey in November, despite the headlines to the contrary. Mr. Truman received an impressive 63% of the presidential votes cast in Yuma County. Truman's brief Yuma speech from 72 years ago was preserved on tape. After expressing his pleasure at the size of the crowd, the president mentioned some issues of interest to the Yuma audience.
The Yuma Reclamation Project is the type of project which the Democratic administrations are building all through the West. The Yuma Project and the Gila Project and the All-American Canal Project are being directed from your city of Yuma. In all, nearly $140 million will be spent on these projects.
In the November 1960 presidential election, Richard Nixon received Arizona's 4 electoral votes by being the statewide winner. But in Yuma County, John F. Kennedy received 55% of the votes to Nixon's 45%. John F. Kennedy's Yuma visit was not just a brief stopover. He gave a speech at the airport, which is also where he was given an Easter seal lily by the Yuma girl in the photo. He then spent a couple of hours at a reception at Yuma's Stardust Hotel. George H.W. Bush visited Yuma in March 1997. The ex-president and decorated World War II veteran was the first U.S. president to visit Yuma Proving Ground. George H.W. Bush was a 20-year-old World War II naval pilot when his plane was shot down on September 2, 1944. He survived a harrowing jump into the Pacific Ocean and vowed to someday jump again under positive conditions. More than 50 years later, the 72-year-old former president got his chance at Yuma Proving Ground with the assistance of the U.S. Army's Golden Knights Parachute Squad. President George W. Bush was the first sitting president to visit Yuma since Harry Truman in 1948. While in Yuma, Mr. Bush toured the Border Patrol's Yuma sector, with Arizona Governor Janet Napolitano. President Bush was back in Yuma less than a year later to discuss immigration reform. Donald Trump is the only president to make 3 visits to Yuma. President Trump's stops in Yuma were used to highlight border security issues. Mr. Trump's second visit included an inspection of the border wall. At his third visit, the president received a more than warm Yuma welcome.
You know, it's 122 degrees in this place. And we have our great governor. Governor, can we make it a little bit, just a little? This is like a test.
In addition to presidents, Yuma has also hosted presidential candidates who were not successful, including Arizona candidates Barry Goldwater, Bruce Babbitt, and John McCain. In our nation's long history, we have only had 45 presidents, so for the men and women running for president, it is always good to have a plan B and a sense of humor.